am compelled by Schlock.
Well, welcome back to the post-Schlock-apocalypse. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is my good buddy, Chris Anonymous, and we are your hosts for this fantabulous show that we do every Monday at 6 p.m. and then post on YouTube every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Nice little plug. How you doing, Chris?
Fantabulous.
Fantabulous.
Yeah.
I love that word.
Fabulous.
So we got a treat of a movie for everybody tonight. We're doing some pre-show talk. I think we're a little bit of differing opinions here, but we'll get into that a little bit later. We're talking about the Patrick Swayze flick Still Dawn, and I'm going to try here to see if I can do my Patrick Swayze Still Dawn sun squint, because this movie is about 2 hours of him staring into the sun, and I think they knew their audience, and I think that they tried to get what they wanted out of it. Unfortunately, let me talk about the cost of this movie here. This movie costs about $3.5 million to make. So maybe they didn't know their audience because they only made about $560,000.
Yeah, ouch.
Youch. Yeah.
Ouch.
So this movie, it was maligned quite a bit. One of the big problems with it, we'll get the elephant off the table here. It is a copy of The Road Warrior. There's a lot of ripoffs of The Road Warrior that came out around that time. That movie came out in 1981, which is crazy to believe. It's Mad Max 2. So Mad Max, I believe, came out late 70s. I don't have it written down, so I can't tell you off the top of my head. But so, yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that coming out around this time. And still comes out to this day. I mean, like, if you can find a barren desert place, you can film a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much, right?
both the blessing and the curse of post-apocalyptic movies is that they lend themselves to an ease of location, I guess. I'm sure there's lots of tricks and troubles with the desert, and when you get some eerie road, I'm sure that's just.
Well, I'm sure there's just sand in everything. I'm sure it's terrible.
You can throw a bunch of junk together and make a fake bar and have your own little Tatooine.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. The other big criticism of this, and we were talking a little bit about it before the show, is that this is an obvious rehash, story-wise, not setting, but story-wise, it's an obvious rehash of the famous Western Shane. And we were talking about this. I have not seen Shane. So Shane on me.
Shane on you.
Shane on me.
I have lots of Westerns were remakes of other movies. We were talking about this beforehand. Seven Samurai became Magnificent Seven. There are just so many. And so when someone remakes a Western as another genre, I'm totally okay with it. There are only so many story beats you can have, and setting a classic story in a different milieu is cool, because you get to explore different things that those stories might not have been able to explore. So if they do it and it becomes a good movie, I'm all on board. And if they do it and it's a bad movie, then I'm not going to pick it apart for being a remake of some other movie or a rehash. I'm just going to pick it apart for being a bad movie.
Right. And while I haven't seen Shane, I know the story of Shane because it is such a part of our cultural language for film, right? The idea that the stranger comes to town essentially, right? And has to help out some widow. It doesn't have to be a widow, but help the little guy, essentially,
small child, and
to take on the larger forces to be. And then of course they can't remain, right? They have to go back into the wild, and they have to ride off into the sunset.
Journey.
Yeah. They can't become civilized. They're a part of the old world.
Carry on like a wayward son.
So anyway, if I just spoiled Shane for you, I'm sorry. We do a lot of spoilers in this show.
Spoil everything.
Even things that we haven't seen, we will spoil it with our speculations. And we have some speculations about this movie that we will talk about later in our Schlock section, I believe. The way we run this show is we talk about what's good, what's bad, and what's schlocky about these movies.
And usually the schlocky is this umbrella that covers the good and the bad.
Yeah. What is schlock? We don't know. We just like to talk.
That's why we have a show. We're trying to figure out what schlock is just as much as you are.
Exactly. And I, Darby, have a very special challenge for everybody. So make sure you stick around to the end of the show to find out what that is, find out what our next movie is going to be. I believe we are ready for our web of schlock.
Okay. We got a couple things in the web. Nothing major, but we'll hit a couple bases. The composer, Brian May, he also scored Mad Max and Road Warrior. So there's another tie-in. Another group of
they may as well just hired Mel Gibson. Right? I mean...
Well, I'm a Patrick Swayze fan.
So is my mom. My mom watches this show, and she called me up and said, I watched the show, or I watched the movie, and Patrick Swayze. I like him. I was like, oh, gross.
And I mean, Roadhouse.
Swayze's for the ladies.
Yeah, Red Dawn, Roadhouse. He's for the dudes too, man. He's got action movies, and then he's got your Dirty Dancing and your Ghost, your Roadhouse. I mean, he just covers the whole 9 yards, man.
Point Break.
Yeah, I love
when he was in the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, Point Break was amazing. One of the best 90s action movies ever made.
Yeah.
Okay, so the director didn't really do a whole lot. Some TV, some other producing. He was an executive producer on Man on Fire. He produced the third Crocodile Dundee movie, Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. He produced Flipper, which also starred Paul Hogan of Crocodile Dundee fame. So little things like that. The writer doesn't have very many writing credits, like a little TV, like a cartoon, this movie, but he was a second unit director on a fair amount of films, a lot of Sam Raimi. He was second unit director on Army of Darkness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Spider-Man. He's also a storyboard artist he's done, like, as a storyboard artist or in that department, just tons of blockbusters, and he's still doing them today. Like, it's really interesting.
And what was his name?
Doug Leffler. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've heard that name before.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's interesting. We've seen this before where it's like someone else involved heavily in movies in a different capacity have one or two writing credits. And it was interesting to see what that is. Actors, Arnold Vosloo, The Mummy, right? He's
The Mummy.
Yeah, he has a small role in that. He has such an iconic look. The bald head and it's just very cool.
For the longest time, I thought he and Billy Zane were the same person.
That's understandable. But yeah.
Like I thought the Mummy was the bad guy in Titanic.
And then Schlock royalty or Brian James, man. 48 Hours, another 48 Hours, Fifth Element, Blade Runner. He's also. I just love his look. He's one of those actors that you see him, and you're like, oh, I've seen him before. I love seeing him again.
Another actor who I thought was somebody else. I love the movie The 13th Warrior, and there's one of the Norsemen in that looks exactly like him.
There's a couple times where it's like you have actors that look so similar, and then but you don't bother to see them because it's such a small role, and then years later you're like, oh, that wasn't him?
Right. They're doppelgangers.
And then the obvious cast. The woman is actually Patrick Swayze was his wife, and they made multiple films together.
Yeah, I just found that out. I believe, like, I thought, ooh, a showmance, maybe they met on this, and no, they've been married since like 1975
until he passed away.
Until he passed away. That's wow. That is really cool, because you don't see that very often in Hollywood, right? Like,
and they were
actors don't stay married together.
They were like in 4 or 5 films together.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and that is the web of Schlock. Shall we get into the good?
Yeah. So I think we're going to have a pretty straight up episode here. So I got like about roughly 3 good things. My top of my list is the desert ship. So this is at the very beginning of the movie when he is walking. I believe it's after his mentor has been killed and he's walking to the town of Meridian. And like I said before, this is kind of a ripoff of Mad Max, right? It's in a post-apocalyptic world and it's like desert land. But the picture of this ship, to me, makes this movie so much more epic than Mad Max, because Mad Max, right? It's like, okay, I think this like just takes place in Australia and it could be like isolated from the rest of the world. By walking past this ship, it leads me as a viewer to believe that that's the ocean. He's walking through the ocean and it's dried up. So whatever has happened has affected the entirety of the world.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Planet of the Apes when you see the Empire State Building, right? You realize that this is Earth at some point later. But that's toward the end as a twist or as a reveal. This is a setup, which is a smart thing to do to differentiate yourself from all the other Mad Max ripoffs.
Right.
Without that shot, I wouldn't even know this took place on Earth.
Oh, exactly. And the rest of the movie takes place in such a small area. That one shot, to me, opened it up to make this movie bigger than it actually is. And something very interesting about that, I think that ship is real. That was a real shot that they got. It is the Edward Boleyn, and it is on the skeleton coast of Namibia. Oh, so real ship,
old skeleton coast of Namibia.
Yep, that place. So yeah, that's my first good. What do you got?
I also have something good in the intro, the upside down intro, where he's doing his handstand. Man, what a fun, great way to introduce your main character. Like, oh yeah, let's just have him, upside down, doing a handstand, meditating, eyes closed, in the desert.
This movie is what taught me how to do a handstand or a headstand,
which is awesome. But it probably didn't teach you how to fight, which was its second promise.
No, not at all. I thought if I drew a triangle in the sand and stood on my head, I would be a desert warrior.
Right.
And that did not happen.
It's also a good visual metaphor for having an upside down world and or an upside down character. Now, I don't know how well they translated that, but just the fact that it's in this upside down world of a Mad Max post-apocalypse, right?
Right.
And then you have your main character, and the first time you see him, he's also upside down, and then he rights himself. That's a strong visual metaphor for how will he right the wrongs that this upside down world has created, which is subtle, and I'm probably reading into it a lot, but I think it's really cool. So it hits me on both levels on like a very artsy intellectual thing, and also on it's just freaking cool to have your main character upside down and meditating when you first see him.
Yeah, that's a really great observation. You see, me, I just thought it was kind of silly.
Yeah,
like when I was a kid, I was like, very cool. As an adult, I was like, a headstand. Now I guess the intro implies that like maybe he does that for hours which is
Right.
like very impressive. But if
It's
he
still
just does
silly.
it
You're not
and then gets
wrong.
down,
You're not wrong that it's silly, but it's also the other things I said.
like maybe he could have done some push-ups while he was there. Like, I don't know.
He doesn't need no push-ups. This ain't a push-up world.
It's a push down world. So that kind of leads me into my second good thing. And I'm going to like eat my words later in the bad. But so one of my favorite scenes in this was the bathtub scene, where he finds the water and he goes out into this landscape in this little tub and takes a bath. First of all, I'd love to take a bath out there. But these guys, they come and harass him. And I just thought it was such a great scene of showing how cool he is.
You know what? The other thing about this scene is how Western it feels. Like it feels straight out of a Western, right? Like the guys on the horses, the bad guys on the horses coming to talk to the badass hero who's in a compromised position, but still so cool and just plays it so cool. Like
just completely undaunted.
Yeah, this is a scene where, you know, he pushes him back and like, we could kill you if we wanted. He's like, yeah, maybe. Yeah, so
I just want to see the scene where he kills all of them from the bathtub.
Oh, watch Eastern Promises.
Okay. Does that happen?
Well, it's similar. It's a Viggo Mortensen, I think.
All right.
I'm pretty sure, and it's in a bathhouse, and he kills a lot of people in the nude. So, if you want to see that scene,
yeah.
That scene exists.
I'd love to see that.
It's violent. It is very violent.
So, do you have any more good for us?
Yeah, the cast. I thought the cast was really good. A lot of bit parts. Some of it was throwaway and just bad acting. Some of it felt like we're in the desert and we have 3 takes and we're going to do the best take we got. But overall, I really, really enjoyed the cast. A lot of small players that you see over and over. Patrick Swayze, I love his wife. I thought she did a fine job. I think the little kid was either like the son or the nephew of the director, the same last name.
Yeah, I noticed
a lot of
hool going down.
Not a lot of pool, a lot of hool.
Yeah, I think director, producer, and actor, all of the hools, HOOL.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of hool. There's a whole hoop of hools, a hoola.
A horde of hools.
Horton here's a horde of hools. Wow.
What hool?
Okay, we got to stop. We just lost like 8 viewers. I mean, and that's probably half the people watching right now. Like, we won't say hool for the rest of the show. We promise.
All right.
For the whole show.
I'd kill for 8 viewers. I'd hool for 8 viewers.
All right. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the cast. Yeah, that's about all the good I have. Anything else that's good would end up in schlock. So you want to finish off the good, or should we go into the bad?
Well, so I will transition into the bad with my previous statement about how badass he looked in the bathtub, in that he is really not badass in this movie. So like, and I don't think that he needs to be. Unfortunately, the way the movie is advertised, it implies that he like so the original title of the movie was Desert Warrior. And I think the tagline for the movie is he's the desert warrior carving out the future with his sword or something like that. So there's like this implication that like he just comes in and kicks ass all the time. But within the very first scene, like I was going to get a screenshot of this, but I opted not to because I feel like it kind of betrayed what they were trying to show. Where he's fighting like the desert mole people or whatever they are, like
which we'll need to talk about here in a bit.
He really like struggles to fight them, and then later, right? When his mentor dies, is killed, is assassinated.
He's poisoned and just laying there.
He's just laying. Yeah, he's just constantly getting knocked around. And I think that would be fine if he was painted as, hey, I'm just a soldier, ex-soldier that's trying to make my way.
But I'm not a superhero.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way they advertise it and show it is that he is kind of that superhero level. And I think it just betrays itself in a way.
See, I see your point. And I raise you that I did not have that because I did not see this as a child and I didn't see the trailer. I was aware of it, but it was a cold watch going in. And so from the very get-go, I saw that he was a capable warrior, but that he really wasn't into like being the hero, and that he was a capable warrior, but he wasn't superhuman. He wasn't just going in and killing everyone with a couple strokes, which made him a better character, I think, more endearing and more realistic.
I definitely enjoy characters like that.
Yeah, but I can see your point where it sets you up for something else. It just didn't do that for me because I didn't have that. That baggage.
Yeah, fair.
Something bad, I thought. And this is a very minor. It's minor. It's not minor. It's definitely a product of its time. With like the hair, I thought was awful on a lot of people, a lot of mullets. I thought the costumes were really weak. I thought a lot of the vehicle design was really bad. This dude's hair was so bad, but actually I like it because it's so bad. I hated Patrick Swayze's hair.
As soon as I saw this guy at the beginning, I was just like, man, are you ready to rock? And then I just heard like Motley Crue songs
I think this movie would be better if you were to re-edit it with a rock score like they did to Metropolis in the 80s. I think that would be a cool version.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Let's do it. Let's crowdfund it.
Let's crowdfund it. It's also, this was a really slow movie, and for not being that long, especially in this setup. Like once he gets to Meridian, it's a little better. But we have that shot of lots of walking, okay? And you talked about the shot of the ship, which is really cool, and I agree with you. And that one shot is enough to convey that this is a really vast landscape. It's unknown. It's probably the ocean floor.
It feels like he's actually walking across the entire ocean.
Right. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And we assume he's going to Meridian, but it hasn't even been set up really. So for all I know at this point in time, he's just wandering because that's what he does. He's looking for the next spot to do his handstand.
Well, so he's tracking the assassin. Show is his name, because I believe so when he comes up to the snake, he finds like the dead snake and the dead guy there. I believe that is the bartender that poisoned him
I didn't recognize him.
So he's on their trail. He's following them, and it takes him to this farm that I believe so happens to be in Meridian, and that's
because
what I thought was
from
weird.
Meridian. So I didn't get that. That's
where
sense.
Well, that's where I got confused, because he comes to this farm, and I'm like, okay, this is Meridian, but no, it's just a farm in Meridian. He should have like gone through Meridian first, and
I think
then
maybe
being
he
like,
was thirsty
"There's
and
help."
tired, and
I don't know. I think it should have been switched.
Yeah, and I think it could have been shorter still. It was still way too much walking, even if he was tracking them. We should have had more shots of him like seeing them in the distance and less of just walking and more walking.
Yeah, for sure.
It takes forever to set up the storyline.
Well, so speaking of taking forever for things, I'll go into my next bad, and it's the dog. And we don't have a picture of it because the dog doesn't do anything. That's part of that setup in the beginning, right? Like, okay, there's a dog. Yeah. How's this dog going to help him in the end? And the dog doesn't really help him. He like goes after a guy with nunchucks.
Right. And that's it. That destroyed the movie for me. I had this whole dog thing. I paused the movie and wrote this whole dog theory out. Right. And then when he sicks the dog on the nunchuck guy, because nunchucks are a thing in this world for some reason.
Future.
Yeah. Everyone in the future has nunchucks. So here's the thing with the dog. He finds the dog. They travel. just him and the dog. Then he gets to the farm, and the dog just kind of disappears. He's not really seen ever, right? And then when he breaks out to go rescue her, the dog's back, and I'm like, is this his spirit animal? Is he only seeing the dog? Has anyone else acknowledged the dog's presence?
They have. While they're in town, there are people talking. They're like, really? A dog outside of town? Like, dogs are really rare in this world.
So I missed that beat. And then I was like, oh man, this is so cool that like it's like when he goes ham, right? He has a spirit animal that just walks with him, but nope, it's a dog that just reappeared and he sticks it on this guy with nunchucks. And I was like,
yeah,
man, missed opportunity. Go ahead.
No, I insist.
I have a problem with the mole people, sand dwellers in the beginning. So the problem I have with them is that I have a hard time reconciling their existence with the ship, because they are not of this world, and they are the only thing. I mean, they could be, but you don't explain it at all.
There needed to be more of it in order for it to make sense.
Correct. So as is, it doesn't make sense, but it's a cool idea.
Right.
Like, you're in the desert and you don't know if these people are going to pop up out, and they never go back to it. I would have loved to have like the main bad guy. I want to say Dimebag, but what's his name? Deet?
Damnil.
Damnil. It would have been cool if Damnil had like hired or was in cahoots with the sandworm people who can burrow in the desert, right? Because that's a really interesting thing, and there could be a whole underground world, and it's just, they were a toss away idea that completely, I'm like, does this take place on Earth? Because this could be a Tatooine. Right. This could be another planet. Except for that ship.
So what's interesting about this, like we've talked about, it's a Western, we've talked about it's a Mad Max ripoff, but we haven't talked about it's like Conan the Barbarian. It's a sword and sorcery in the future. But without the sorcery part. Like we get a part of it at the beginning, right? These weird half human, half beast things, right? Like we're in that fantasy world, and then it goes away. But I could believe that there exists some type of future sorcery in this world because of that.
Yeah, and I could also buy something that was completely non-sorcery related, where these people adapted to breathing sand instead of air or something.
You're right. It's a throwaway.
This is Schlock, and I love this.
Yeah, I think we're at a good transition point to get into Schlock here.
Yeah, and we're probably going to run a few minutes late because we're quickly running out of time.
Let's do it.
All right. I love this character, a flamboyant doctor who also kind of brings mail and news. It's a rickshaw, but it's also a unicycle, and it's got this like umbrella type thing that doesn't do a lot of good. And
are these guys slaves?
Yeah, I don't know what they are. Like, if they like work for him, like, hey, I'll heal your wounds if you do this for me, or hey, I need a job. Well, here's the thing. They could pay. He's the one who has probably more money than anyone else because he's got the skill set, right?
Right.
So these people need a job. Hey, I'll pay you a couple coins to haul me around. So I don't think they'd have to be slaves per se. I just think people need work, and he could pay. What a fun character. This is good, bad, and Schlock, and I want to talk about Tark and this trope. And you see it a lot in westerns. You see it a lot in post-apocalyptic movies. But he's like the rebound placeholder. He's there working, being a father figure to the son, pining after the woman. But he's not as bright as the lead, and he's not as handsome. He's not as smart. He's all those things, but just not to the degree of the hero. And so when you have the hero enter, he looks so much better in comparison. And usually there's this moment where either on purpose or on accident, he humiliates this new character and then almost usurps him and takes his place. But he gets more love from the child, and there's usually a sexual relationship with the mother character. And so it's like this guy was just standing in place, and like our hero moves in and then just pushes him aside. And then he, there's movies where he wanders off. And this one, they go back for him, which is slightly redeeming, but then he dies, right? So his whole existence, that whole character trope makes me sad, because he's like a good guy who gets no break. And then when the slightly better guy comes in, it's like, yeah, you can just go do your own thing, or be cannon fodder, and it's just an interesting trope that you see a lot in these movies. And I just want that tartness. It's interesting.
Well, and it was in my bag column, and I think it's schlocky, and this thread sort of makes our protagonist look like kind of a slime bag, because he comes into this farm, he like sort of places himself as the head of this family, sleeps with the mother, the love interest, this person who is like his commander's widow, and he goes and fulfills his purpose, which is to kill the assassin that killed his mentor, get his revenge. He kind of helps him out in the end, and then he leaves. Right. Like he inserts himself and then leaves. Yeah.
What's interesting is that there are some stories where it feels appropriate for someone to leave. Mm-hmm. Like they're
in Mad Max.
They're so savage or so animalistic that they can't be in society. Right.
It
doesn't feel that way at all. It feels like this dude should stay there and be a family man and be with the woman and raise the child and help rebuild the city and help protect it, because he has skills to fight off other people, because someone else is
be the peacekeeper.
Yeah, be the peacekeeper.
That's what his mentor was coming to. Like, he can be the new peacekeeper.
It felt very like, well, in all the other movies of this story and iterations of the story, mm-hmm. he wanders off into the sunset. And so that's what we have to have here. And I'm like, it just makes his character seem slimy and just like, why didn't you stay, dude? There's no reason for you to leave. Now, if you would have had the character be a lot more aggressive and freaky and just devolved of society and what it takes to function in society, then it would be almost noble of him to leave, even though he wants to stay, right? But instead we have a feeling of like, well, I want to stay, but the script says I have to go.
For sure.
And then an empty promise at the end. Yeah, go ahead.
We are really running over to the end of our time, in that, like, I have so much more that I could talk about this movie. I want to get to some of our promises at the beginning.
Yes.
So what is this movie potentially? How is it connected to some other things?
Someone brought up the idea that they hadn't seen this movie, and they assumed that it was a sequel to Red Dawn.
Because Patrick Swayze is in both.
And Dawn is in the title of both. And why that's Makes not sense. True, maybe it is. I would like to see that. So I'm going to try and talk through it. You have not seen Red Dawn, which we will remedy on this show at some point in time. Whenever it appears.
I'm a terrible movie reviewer. I've not seen anything.
That's okay. So I haven't seen Red Dawn forever, but I'm recalling it, and Patrick Swayze's character dies at the end, or he's mortally wounded and it implies that he's going to die. So they might be like talking or hugging or something, and they're going to die. So you had brought up the fact, well, so this is set in the future. Maybe this is a direct descendant of that Patrick Swayze character. And I don't think that he had a hookup with any girl or girlfriend in the movie, if I recall, but he might have. So the question is, did this teenager, did he get another teenager pregnant in Red Dawn without us seeing that part of the story? And then is that child grow up in the World War III, and then he had a child, and then he had a child, which is this Patrick Swayze and Still Dawn, because this is clearly set decades, if not further, beyond
I think that he fought in World War III, the Nomad character in Still Dawn. I believe that he fought in World War III.
And so this is definitely, in Red Dawn, this is definitely the start of World War III. So it would be hard to say that his child fought in World War III, unless World War III lasted 20 years, 30 years, but it could have.
Stuff happens.
So, this let's put a pin in it and say a strong maybe that this is a sequel to Red Dawn.
Strong maybe.
Yeah, but if it is, it's not as good as the original. But most sequels aren't. So
yeah, well, fair enough.
And what were you saying at the beginning of the show?
So we've talked a lot about the setting of this world. It's got Western elements. It's got post-apocalyptic elements. It's got sword and sorcery elements. I do think that it is a very rich world to exist in. And I honestly wouldn't mind seeing more of this world. Now, some people may know that I also do a lot of stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop RPGs. I run an Instagram website called Tip Secrets. I will propose that if this video gets 100 likes, I will create an RPG setting for Still Dawn. It won't be super long, but I will make it so that you, the viewer, can live and play in this world. And you can fight all of the desert sand people, half beast people that you want. You can take over farms. You can move in on other people's women.
Can we have knee blades?
We can have 2 knee blades per person. All the knee blades you want.
A chicken in every pot.
A chicken in every pot. Yes. A windmill in every farm. So that's all the time we have. What is our next movie?
Well, I wanted to pick something for St. Patrick's Day, but Scooby had slim pickings, so I went with Irish film. This is 1988. Taffin.
Taffin. All right. I'm Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. Chris Anonymous. We've been compelled by Schlock. We will see you next week.
I am compelled by Schlock. By Schlock. Wait, no.